What's going on, guys? Phil Birch here from Unfun Stuff. And today we're going to be talking about not a meta breakdown itself, but the news of the new bannings. I know this video is a couple days late, and I'm sure all your favorite content creators have gone into the whys and the hows and the what should have been banned slash changed in the My Hero Academia competitive format. So let's get right into it. The first three cards that we added three cards to the ban list: Amphibious, Frog Lashing, and Unwavering Slash, which are all obviously super good cards, right? They were all good cards in their own right, and a lot of people have been having questions as to why these three specific cards got banned, not an Asui ban itself. People are worried about the rarity and the pull rates of their ultra rares now, etc., etc., etc. So first things first, we now have four cards banned from the first set of My Hero Academia, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you look at the power level of My Hero Set 1 in comparison to Set 2, it's very clear that there are some very strong outliers. The power levels don't really match up, and it's kind of indicative of how the way Set 1 looks like it was designed. It looks like the initial designs for Set 1 were probably somewhere in the scope of a tuned down standard format. Standard's got a lot of really crazy abilities, and a lot of these cards would see some impactful play in the standard format. Now, if you look at Crimson Rampage, obviously the power level is a lot lower, right? It's a lot more character-oriented effects. You have to get away with playing like your own support. A lot of smaller kits as well, like 2-card kits, and yeah, it's overall a weaker set. Not necessarily a bad set, but when you compare it to My Hero Academia Set 1, it is certainly worse. So these cards that clearly look like they have intentions for being in a standard format or are overperforming look and feel like great big outliers. Now, that being said, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, why a card like Amphibious? Why does a card like Amphibious get banned, but Asui gets to stay meta relevant and gets to stay in the game? And I think that is a two-part answer. Part one is you don't want people getting into the My Hero collectible card game, right, and seeing that their favorite character is banned. Or, conversely, hurting the casual format by going, well, you can't play Asui anymore because she's too strong competitively. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, you can really get rid of a character and have it so that the competitive format and casual formats look better. But that's not my angle to take, right? I don't have any say in that. I just get to post about stuff and hope for changes like the rest of us in the competitive community. Another thing like I said, would be Amphibious doesn't necessarily look like a super assuming card. So people are a little bit more concerned about it, right? They're like, why are my commons getting banned, but this character gets to sit here and be incredibly strong? I believe what the company is hoping to do, and they kind of explain it in their ban post, is they really want to tune down the level of the Life Asui decks that are kind of running terror over the most recent tournaments. These decks are very fine tuned. They are very strong, very aggressive, and they can often get turned to kills. A card like Amphibious doesn't necessarily on its face seem assuming, but the reason it is so strong is because it rewards you for playing the game's mechanics incorrectly, right? So Amphibious is obviously only going to untap if a card has left your card pool. Well, that would represent your cards getting easier while they are already getting easier, right? You are looking at Amphibious counting as close to like 2 to 3 foundations turned per copy because of how the mechanics of the game work, right? For every card you put into your card pool, your cards are supposed to get harder to play, which means you're supposed to have to tap more cards. But Asui kind of breaks that rule, right? She says, all right, every single other attack, like I play with my first attack, and then every attack following that kicks out a previous one if I want it to. So not only is her card pool incredibly small and incredibly cheap because she's only ever playing cards on a 5 or at maximum a 6 in general, she's also getting rewarded by a 1/5 foundation. So a very cheap, very easy to play foundation. If it was a 2/5 or a 2/4, we probably won't be having this conversation. But it's a 1/5 foundation that when she does happen to check a 3, which means she only has to commit 2 cards anyway, she can commit those. And then, because she cleared her card pool and her next card is again going to be on a 5, she is allowed to ready them, which is representing actually a lot more value than is kind of quantifiable without like really, really thinking about it, really, really talking about it in depth for newer players, because they don't see it that way necessarily. And that's kind of why that card has been a problem, and it's why it's seeing play in other decks like Momo. Momo has a really easy way to clear her card pool as well with her effect. So defensively, it is a nightmare in Momo, whereas offensively and defensively, it's a nightmare in Asui. So the banning of Amphibious is hoping to tone down the power level of both Life Momo and Life Asui. Life Asui in particular, all Asuis in general, right? Does it also hurt Ochako? Yes, it hurts Air and Life Ochako, of course. Of course. She had another easy way to clear her card pool. Was she abusing it as much as these other characters? No, not even close. Second, we have Frog Lashing, which again, I just kind of talked about how the ease of the cards of Asui are making it even easier for her to play these very long strings. Well, if you think about Frog Lashing on its face, right? It's a 5 difficulty move, and if you're playing it in a deck, you're playing it in a deck that's always going to have face downs. So, for a 5 difficulty move, no matter how you check, if you check a 5, perfect. You already got it. If you check a 3, you get to commit 2 face downs, and you're untapping those 2 face downs. This card is basically a 3 difficulty attack by that logistic alone. And now that would be probably fine, right? If this was a 5 difficulty, 4 high for 6, that just readied 2 foundations. But, again, it has that added bonus of also doing a crazy amount of damage in the decks that are playing it, right? Now, this one is a little bit different than Amphibious because it's not reliant on you doing anything but flipping your cards over. And a lot of cards in the My Hero Academia card game have flip for a cost. And flip for a cost is just fine. Just fine for Frog Lashing to be used and abused. You could be playing in water decks, which don't have a free flip. Air decks, which have a even harder time flipping, but they're still able to play the card because it is so strong and so powerful. So that card is making Asui's strings and every other character's strings able to extend that much longer because it is giving you an extra 2 foundations to use during a turn. And if you check a 5 on it and you only have to commit, like if you don't commit anything or you only have to commit 1, you're actually plussing resources for playing an attack, which is something that the game definitely doesn't need. You shouldn't be gaining from playing an attack without any other interaction, right? The card itself is the only thing gaining the advantage for you. It's a card that gains advantage just for existing. It doesn't require a combo or anything else. It just exists and gives you advantage. So that card is insane. And I liked the card. I thought it was cool in the format because I thought we needed some really cool kill cards in the format to really entice people to play big damage attacks and not just sit back and block, right? But we are hopefully going to see a lot more of those in set 3, and then we can return to a balanced meta of having like really strong defensive decks, really strong offensive decks, and having them kind of meet in the middle, which is really cool. That's really sweet. Third, we have Unwavering Slash. And this is the one I see the most confusion, I guess, around, because it doesn't on face appear to be as strong as some of the other cards in the format to a newer player, right? Well, everything on that card is absolutely insanely free. Everything on the card is free. You are trading 1 card in your hand for a build, which is free, basically, right? Instead of having to play it during your turn, you get to play it by discarding a card, which is awesome. Super free, though. You are readying and drawing a card, so you are adding a resource back to yourself, or if you have a commit effect like passing the torch, you're drawing a card, passing the torch, readying, passing the torch, and drawing a card. You are just getting so much value out of this 1 card. You actually don't... It just is pluses. It's all pluses across the board, right? If you think about it logistically, at the end of that attack, you will still have 6 cards in your hand, and you built 1 for free, and you untapped a card, right? So that's just really crazy. You get to untap your favorite commit effect if you check the 5. You get to untap if you checked poorly on the turn. You just get to ready a resource and make it so your attack string goes longer. A lot of the things you're going to notice about the cards that get banned is they have interactions with readying foundations in your staging area. And that's because that is a very, very powerful mechanic that we haven't really seen that much of, even in Standard. In Standard, these cards had a lot more costs associated with them. And that's kind of why things are in a little bit of a gray area right now, where these abilities are super strong. Another thing with Unwavering Slash is it really limits their ability to design assets on those symbols, right? If you want to have a really cool asset and you go, all right, well, this is a really strong, really powerful asset. I think we should make it a 4 difficulty card, right? Well, Unwavering Slash says, that's not a 4 difficulty card. That card's free. I can just discard a card from my hand and play it into play. And that's why we were seeing the big abusive interaction with Sports Festival Stadium, right? So you're building in your Sports Festival Stadium during your attack turn, which means your opponent doesn't get to use it first, right? Your opponent doesn't get the extra burn effect on their attack dealing damage first, where now you do, which is strong, which is crazy, which is great. It also allows you to instantly use the response for blocking to draw an extra card. So you're getting even more value out of the card. So basically, Unwavering Slash was chopped because it could not be allowed really to exist if they ever planned on printing an asset that was reusable, was super strong, but had like conditions to it, like having to play it on a higher difficulty or having a lower check or something like that. It just negates all of those things from a design standpoint. So they had to do something with it eventually, and it was better to do something with it now when they are already making bans. It also hurt the power of a couple of the big decks, right? Again, Momo doesn't like to see that card go. All of the versions of Jiro hate to see that card go. And some of the air decks like Denki and Ochako are tuned down just a little bit by having to play actually Sports Festival Stadium during their own turn. So yeah, I think that overall those are some extremely healthy bans. Would I have liked to see Asui go? Yes. Do I think that Life Asui is still one of the top 5 decks in the meta? Absolutely. I think that you could just replace and tweak around what you were doing, and you still get the same results, because cards like Passing the Torch weren't touched, which is a big enabler of that deck. Passing the Torch wasn't touched, and you still have huge moves. Like, you can still play Tongue Whip, you can still play Cannon Blast. A lot of really cool things, and I think that deck is going to still see play, and I know for a fact some people are still testing it to try and just prove what we in the competitive community are seeing, is that Asui is just broken, and she should not exist. A couple of real quick things, like cards that I would have liked to see get banned as well. I think Requesting Assistance is another one of those cards that is really just an unfair version of cards, right? Like, it is doing what Amphibious does, but in different decks. It is a 0 difficulty 5 check, which is no cost to it at all. You're going to play it in every deck. And then you get to just ready a card just because you have momentum. That's really strong. It doesn't ready. If it just flipped and readied itself, that would be fine, right? That's totally reasonable. But being able to reuse your other strong cards on symbol is a little bit too good. Just a little bit too good. Obviously, I would have liked to see Asui banned. And other cards, like, I really don't like Passing the Torch. I think Passing the Torch shouldn't be in this format. Or, I understand it's a star deck card. I wish it would be like Midoriya only or something. Then the Midoriya stands can really like be up in arms that they have actually a cool effect that other people can't use. And I think that'd be pretty sweet. So Requesting Assistance, Passing the Torch. I really think like you could have probably gotten away with banning Stronger in Darkness as well, because it's like it's another one that's just a little bit too good. Right, and eventually Tokiyami is going to be kind of a nuisance to the meta probably at some point. So might as well like hit him now as well, is what I thought. But we'll see. We'll leave it up in the air. Aggro is aggro, so maybe that's what they thought about it. Anyway, guys, that's kind of all I have to talk about it. Hopefully that broke down and was easily understood by a lot of the newer competitive community newer competitive community that really wasn't understanding what the scope was. Right, not every competitive player is on the same like wavelength as the people who have played for a million years. Like, I understand why stuff is broken. It doesn't mean that necessarily even other people who make top 8s and top 4s and top 2s understand why cards are broken, right? It's a hard game, and I hope that this gives you a little bit of insight into it. Anyway, guys, thanks again for watching. As always, I'm Phil Birch from Unfun Stuff. Go on and check our store. Use DK Slicer to get yourself 5% off your Set 3 pre-releases or pre-orders. All right, anyway, guys. See you later.